new year of action. 2021 Hurling Championships getting underway this weekend. It's great to be back in touch with Joe Nolan, Stevie, Bambrick and James Hickey. Thanks for coming on, lads. How's things?
All good. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
So what's been happening over the last kind of 12 months, boys? Because I haven't seen Sight or Light or no one hardly. Joe, you had a busy little tenure anyway. Your first year involved with the Carlow Senior Hurlers as a selector. So how did that go for you?
That's great. Yeah, very busy, Kev. Yeah, very busy. Even though I suppose, we didn't hit the pitches, I suppose, till a couple of weeks before our first league game. But there was a lot of work done in the background there. Just with meeting players, meeting new management team, programs for lads. Checking in on lads, seeing how things were going. So it was a busy year. And then obviously when we hit the pitch, it was it was flat out. You're flat out 3 or 4 times a week or 3 times a week, and then with other bits and pieces. So good year, very interesting. Learned an awful lot from it, and I suppose more than that, gives you even a higher respect for the effort that the lads are putting in at county level. It's just phenomenal, and our own lads included. They're just massive shift put in by them. In terms of time and hours and what they do, to get the most out of themselves and the most out of their game it's phenomenal. And I like I said, I'd always be very appreciative of what lads would put in anyway when you'd be standing, cheering them on from the terraces or whatever else. But when you're kind of see it up close and personal, it even brings it to a higher level. So yeah, busy time, but a good time, Kevin. Yeah, really thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
And who says junior championship success in Carlow don't lead you to stardom?
Yeah, about me or Stevie?
He's looking at next year, maybe.
Stevie, what's your story? I know you're chairman of the club down there in Airbreed. Involved as a selector, I think, this year as well.
Yeah, sure. Training has been going all right. Like, sure, it's busy out. Like, there's matches, Kilkenny League under 13 and 15 juveniles, and that's been mad. And the Bulger Cup, in fairness, there was on every Tuesday night there, so the lads got plenty of games. Now, sure, I suppose we're no different than any other club. Hamstrings are going every left, right, and centre. Seeing it even like we played Navan down there, Martin Clowry pulled up in it, and I see he was back a couple of weeks later. And in fairness, I don't know whether we said it last year when it was brought back. It was a great idea that the Bulger Cup would have been. I'd say I don't know whether James would have played in it now, but your father's time, Patton, Mick Murphy, them boys. The Bulger Cup was a great tournament. When we started out playing, I think the first game I ever played was in the Bulger Cup. So good to see that competition back up and going. And then there was games every Tuesday. And so look, we'll know next Saturday night we're going down to Burris. We'll see where we're standing in the around 7:30, 8 o'clock. We'll have a better picture in the year ahead. And like the matches are going to be week on week again. So similar to the Bulger Cup, you're going to need different lads every week, because there's going to be injuries, and no matter what, it's it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
James, you're hanging out just across the border again this year, but it's another border this time.
Yeah, down in Brignamanny. Yeah, look, it's close to home. I have a good group there, and tipping along now. Look, a lot of work to be done, but really good group of players, and enjoying it now at the moment. Yeah, really enjoying it. Yeah,
good stuff. How's the boys in your own club? We obviously are able to cover this intermediate game fairly well at the weekend. So, one little thing that kind of strikes me beforehand was, if Rangers had got to the football final last Sunday, would this intermediate game be going ahead this weekend?
I wouldn't say so. No, I wouldn't.
I'm not going to get all technical about this. Was that kind of like the lads would have probably felt they had a decent enough chance last Sunday, but were they kind of not really looking too far ahead to see that there was a possible headache coming? Or not that it matters now, of course, but
I wouldn't say they were looking, to be fair. I wouldn't say they were definitely looking too far past their road. I think, I suppose, look, if we speak openly and honestly, I don't think to give the football the respect it deserves. I think to be a team like Éire Óg, you have to be at it nearly 4 nights a week. You have to have systems. You have to have everything. To have all that, you have to have the players when you need them. And the management didn't have that. I suppose on the back of that too, subconsciously, look, the hurling is the big one. And I always think that, look, if they give that football a rattle, they could give it a rattle. But look, I'm not there, but however, and no, I think that the hurling is taking precedent. And look, it's, to be fair, I don't know how much you could read into Éire Óg last Sunday evening either, because coming into a county final, you'd surely want a stiffer challenge than you got. And it is what it is now. And Rathvilly had a very good game against Pal, and that'll be a huge advantage to them. And as they did win the league a few weeks back, so look, Éire Óg are a super team, and they'll probably be favourites. But I'm expecting a good county final Sunday.
Good stuff. So let's talk about this year's hurling championships then, anyway, James. And with I think the lads would agree with me. If we can get Joe back in, he'd probably agree with us too. Last year's performance by Rangers in that 2020 hurling championship, for me, was probably the most complete I've ever seen by any team in winning a championship. Like, nobody got near them.
No, and look, to be fair, the elements suited us, and I suppose the three lads in this call will agree with this point. Going into a championship, if you have a complement of players like we had, and you have sole access to them for that period, like, it's a huge advantage. You're going training every night with full numbers, full squad, no injuries, etc., etc. The championship ended up being a dream for us in that sense. There was no county, there was no nothing, no sideshows, no excuses, no nothing. And plus the lads got a bit of a break, say, beforehand with the lockdown. Everybody got a chance to take a break. And I suppose for those 5-6 weeks or 2 months, say, max, they were in their own bubble. And the results of that ended up being a championship winning team. Very good. But look, this year it'll be a lot different. Joe was in there with the county team, and look, Tommy trained me for 10 years and Christy together, and to be fair, Joe, I'd say, will agree with this. They're exceptional. Like, they're an exceptional management team, and through no fault of the county management team, they were so unlucky this year with injuries. But at the same time, they got the blood an awful lot of players, which was a huge advantage looking in from the outside. Now, if you don't know hurling, you'd say, Jesus, they should have won to Joe McDonough. But if you do know hurling in Carlow, the likes of Mouse, Edward Byrne, these lads, like, Mouse is worth 5 points a match, and Edward Byrne is definitely worth 2 to 3 points. If he doesn't score them, he'll create them. And they just seem to be fierce unlucky with injuries. James Dial comes back, Mouse goes out. But I thought the county team done fierce well this year based on the players they had available and blood and new players, etc.
Yeah, so Joe, what we were saying before you kind of dropped off on us there was that last year it felt like that was the most complete performance by any Carlow club hurling team in winning a championship with Rangers, because they weren't touched. Like, and I think we were all saying last year, if there had been a Leinster championship, it would have took a serious team to beat them, But where does it put things this year, lads? And Joe, you would have seen it in there with the county. Like, where is everyone else at? Because Mouse obviously now is not going to be with St. Mullins, so we have to make Rangers favourites here again, clearly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's fairly, I suppose they've been lucky enough, I suppose. Like, look, let's be honest with you, both say just going down through the teams, Ballinkillen, at the minute have a good few injuries to key players. Obviously, Kieran, Shawnee out, Sean Murphy maybe only coming back, and a few others as well. So, like, we aren't where we were last year. I suppose, like we said with St. Mullins, with Mouse being out definitely for probably the group games anyway, that kind of takes a big thing out of their arsenal there as well. And I suppose Leinster Rangers have been lucky in that sense. I know Edward was unfortunate with ourselves, like, that he didn't get to hurl much, but he's back now, fit and well, and any other little niggles that they had, as much as I know, are all okay. So, I mean, look, they have probably a full hand to pick from, and at full strength, and whereas other teams maybe are struggling here and there. And it has to leave them as favourites. I mean, look, I think you'd be very naive to think otherwise, because I suppose, or maybe speaking from a Ballinkillen point of view, for us to keep with them, or to keep things going, and to keep the pressure on, I suppose, St. Mullins and Mount Leinster Rangers, we need to have a full hand. And currently we're down a couple of our key men, so it definitely puts Rangers, I think, top of the pile at the minute anyway. But who knows what will happen over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah,
James, I jump in there because I know we're under time constraints with you. So,
but yeah, look, and Joe is dead right, and Stephen and yourself there. Look, on paper, Rangers are favourites, right? And I'm not an idiot. I agree with that, and I won't play that down. At the same time, now they're losing Jack Murphy. Dennis is struggling. Dennis had actually retired. He's suffering bad with 2 knees. Really came against him over the winter. And he actually went back to, believe it or not, to numbers. I think we had 14 with the under-20s. We had X amount in with the seniors. They needed him to, they actually fucking went to him, and he had actually, he approached management and said that he wasn't going to play. He's just, the knees were killing him. He went back, he played. He's still struggling. They're missing Jack. And you have to remember, Dennis scored 2-6 in last year's county final and was taken off with 15 minutes to go. And for me, probably the best hurler I ever hurled with Rangers. He'd definitely be in the top 3, if not number 1. And just so reliable, so dependable. So I think, like, and I'm after saying this to a couple of people, we probably have that clinical forward in Chris, like St. Mullins had in Mouse or James Doyle, depending on where to play James Doyle. So if Dennis is struggling and he doesn't replicate the 2-6, and Chris Nolan scored 8 points in last year's county final, like, that's 20 points. Suddenly that becomes, 20 points is hard to replicate out with somewhere else if it's taken out of the team. So, like, the big thing for us is to keep injury free. I would think that Ballinkillen myself I think Ballinkillen are getting better year on year. I know Sean Murphy, Shawnee Whelan, and Kieran Whelan for me is an absolutely exceptional hurler. I thought last year in the championship he had an exceptional championship. I think he's a brilliant fella. He's a nice fella. Everything about him is right, and he'll be a huge loss to Ballinkillen, along with the boys. Obviously, they're fantastic hurlers too. I just think that I was over there, or the under-13s had a match one night in Ballinkillen, and the seniors were training, and they just looked fierce, solid, fierce together. You just know there was something about them, if you know what I mean. Bagnalstown there with the county under-20s, thereafter, they had huge representation in the county under-20, and like Michael, they played us in the Bulger Cup, as Stephen alluded to earlier. And I watched that game, and even my father commented after. He said it's a long time since he's seen a Michael team so fit. And look, you have to be really, really fit to play this game. And I just think it's going to be a good championship this year. And I don't think it's going to be won at a canter like we won it last year. Like I said, we were in a bubble. It worked for us. But I think this year won't be as straightforward.
Absolutely. Well, listen, James, I know you're under pressure, so we'll say good luck to you, and thanks for jumping on for the few minutes that we did have you, and sorry for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, no problem.
Good man, we'll chat to you again soon, all right?
Yeah, God bless, guys. Thanks.
Take it easy.
Thanks, James. Take care, man.
There you go. Ever enthusiastic as always, Mr. Hickey. I actually didn't realise you was a great man this year. That'll tell you now I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm a great lad to be hosting a podcast about Carlow, and I don't know where lads are or what they're doing. But anyway, there we go. Great man and him would be a good fit, I'd say, actually, because they probably can only kind of go one way as such. They've been down junior for quite some time, Joe. And I think anywhere that man goes, he'd be good anyway. He just has that kind of X factor about him. Any club he goes into or any county setup, he improves them. We saw it with Carlow, and I genuinely think for any club over the next 5 to 10 years, wherever he goes into, there's just going to be a lift. He just has it, doesn't he, in fairness, Town?
He does, in fairness, yeah. He has. He's a great man. He's a great motivator. He's a great head, a great brain. Training. Like he said himself, he's all that experience as well from playing with the county and training and taking stuff from good managers as well. And he has his own twist. And like I said, he's that charisma, that way about him. I think it is a good fit, Kevin. We would have hurled Greg Naman over the years as well. Heard him in challenge matches recently as well, and that. And they are a team probably that have underachieved an awful lot down at Kenny. They would see themselves as, I won't say as better than what they are, but they should be probably out junior at this stage. So it will be a good fit. And I think as well, being a kind of a single code club, I think will double down his efforts, if you get me. Do you know what I mean? As in that he he can really work with them on the one code. Where I suppose in Carnew, he had, there was two codes to contend with and a different focus maybe as well. Whereas I think here with the hurling alone, I think he'll really, or they will reap benefits from having him, because he is a top man in fairness to him.
Yeah, and the only opposition you might have is Highview Athletic, and I'm not saying there should be an apartheid between sports or anything like that, but like with other areas you go into, there could be 4 or 5 things you're competing with, so that's an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of these games, lads. So tomorrow night, we have 2 games, tomorrow night being Friday, just for the purposes of whenever this stream does go out. And Michael versus Bindlestown is the first game I want to look at. That's 7:30 inside in Netwatch Cullen Park. And again, I suppose to borrow an old cliche, it is a game that both sides will feel that they have a good chance of winning. Would Bindlestown, Stevie, do you think, be looking at this and thinking this is probably our best game in terms of chances of winning? And Michael probably the same.
Yeah, I suppose you go back to last year's, it wasn't a quarter-finals, last league game. Bindlestown was the kind of winner takes all, and in fairness, Bindlestown played as well as possibly they could have, just couldn't go over the line. Ross Smithers kind of grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck in the last 10-15 minutes and drew a few frees, and it was Bindlestown have come on a lot. And now this year, I don't know who's going to be playing starting 15 as such, but rumours are Alfie could be pushed out a bit further now. I don't know whether that's great to see him back anyway, number 1. We played Nevo and below in the Bulger Cup in Loughlin in the Super Bowl, and in fairness, they played about half, well, if you call it their strongest team, and the other half were doing a session on the sideline there for a lot of it, because they had a challenge match 2 days later, because there were those lads trying to, I suppose they felt that they wanted to get a run out for most of the lads were playing Donegal 2 days later. I don't know how that went, but the match below anyway, they won by 6 or 8 points. So yeah, Bindlestown will, if you're looking at it, you're probably looking at it'd be a better chance of beating Nevo than beating Sam Mullins or Bowness Range. But no matter your first game, it's a bit like playing a match. You can't lose or you can't win a match in the first 10 minutes. You could lose in the first 10, and you're going to be challenge games, and you don't know who's playing who. The Osher team is going great, or we bet such a one be 10 or 15 points. Tomorrow night, when I'm just looking at Michael, as I know, Joe James said, sorry, they were trying to work the ball out, kind of a structure. There was no hit and hope. They were working on a game plan. They were trying to go through the lines as well as the code, and like there's some big men in every line. Like John Michael wasn't playing that night; he was centre back. Then in the Bulger Cup final, now that when Joe was at that, I presume, like Ballinkillen got a couple of runs on him and finished him off. And but it'll be interesting to see what way it goes. As James said, with under-20s, they're a year older now, so there's probably a bit more expected out of the likes of Jack McCullough, Keane Dial. These lads are still only 19, 20, 21 years of age, but it'll be interesting to see what way it ends up.
Yeah, well, both managers are still there this year. That's Gavin Nolan with Bindlestown and Colin Keeling with Nave Owen. So it's probably a good thing for the lads, because there was a bit of progress made for both of them last year, despite the giving out we did about Michael for a little while, because I felt maybe at times where it might have seemed like we were a bit harsh on them, but we were just calling it openly and straight, and that's the way this year will be too. And but like, I think Michael did introduce a couple of chaps last year. Bindlestown are introducing a load of chaps for the present year. Jake Doyle, I think, being one of them. Billy Fitzpatrick. There's a number of others as well. I think young Cody could be coming on board, and that'll bolster their squad. But as Stevie kind of touched on there, Joe, I think there is, I won't say a little bit of pressure, but guys that aren't that, I suppose, mature or experienced at senior level are now kind of expected to carry the can a little bit already. And that's probably a little bit unfair on the likes of young McCullough and stuff like that. But he's nearly a key player already, because he's been in with the county side. So they're going to be looking to him for a big performance. Young Keane Dial is captain, I believe, as well. Still only young enough chap, like. So these lads have to make considerable steps quite quickly, which is kind of interesting, because if you go back 10 or 11 years ago when Bindlestown got to that first final in 2009, actually, 12 years ago now, it was kind of the same, because Alfie and Beanie and all that were coming on, and they were nearly backbone on the side. And if you remember correctly, they were only 20 or 21 at the time. So it's kind of nearly the same thing. And it'd be interesting to see how it pans out.
Thinking back on it there, when you mentioned names, like I remember Alan MacDonald as well coming in. He was only a minor. Been a big kind of a threat as well around that time. I suppose there is going to be a lot of those younger lads in key positions. But in fairness, this will be their second year, in those key positions. Like you mentioned, say Niall Bulger, Darren Nolan, Jack, Keane. They've all a year's senior hurling under their belt, and in fairness to them, obviously they went really, really well, and obviously, they're in with ourselves then as well with the county senior panel for the year. And I think the lads themselves, those just picking those lads, and some of their other younger players there as well. Like again, if you go back to their team, it was very young. If you take out Alfie, who is back in the mix, you take out say Beanie and Freder, like the rest of them are relatively young men. But they didn't let it phase them last year. Like I think I remember looking back at one of the podcasts that we did last year and talk about Jack McCullough's performance even against ourselves when he was on. I think he was on David English, and geez, he gave him absolutely as good a game of hurling as anyone gave him over the hour, in the first game. And I don't think it'll worry these younger lads. They don't mind. They don't care what age they are. Who's up against them. They know, like, in terms of, I suppose, even physical conditioning. It's not like they're having to make a huge step up in terms of senior anymore. Like, these lads are so well conditioned so early as well. So there's no physical. It's not like years ago, I suppose, when Stevie or any of us started, where you were coming on as a younger lad, and you were playing against lads who were a little bit more seasoned, even physically. There was worries, but not anymore. Like, that's a thing of the past. I think Bagnallstown will be targeting. I do really think they'll be targeting this game. While Michael have been tipping away, there is that kind of inconsistency with them. And I think that's the worrying thing from a Michael point of view. I think we spoke about it a lot last year. Was the kind of the idea of putting two good games in a row. And I do see it as a key game for both, because it's a momentum builder. Because like I said, being realistic, both teams will be targeting it as a win game. I'm not saying they're not targeting other games as a win game, but it's definitely a game that both clubs will be trying to target to get points on the board. I do think, I know Stevie and yourself there mentioned we hurled them in the Bulger Cup, Michael. Again, I suppose they hadn't got a full, we were kind of back to more or less full strength, or what we had at the time. And I know Michael weren't at full strength on that particular evening. And there was a few interesting, changes, both in their style of play, I suppose, like we said. I suppose like most modern teams now, no matter what level you're playing, they're trying to work the ball through the hand and not give up possession easily. But they had John Michael positioned at centre half back, and I don't know whether that was applied that they had used in any other game since, or whatever else, or whether it was just I suppose maybe something that they had to do on the night or whatever. But it'll be interesting to see where he does line out for them, because he is a huge talisman for them. And then Ross as well at wing back on the night as well. And I would have thought maybe that he might have given them a little bit more oomph around the middle, driving forward and causing problems. But again, you just don't know what the Bulger Cup games are kind of showing up or not showing up, or whether managers are keeping things close to their chest. You don't know.
Is it a kind of a build from the back process? Because I know Ross has played in defence, and John Michael wouldn't have played in defence, I'd say, since he was minor. But are they trying to get that platform or foundation there, and is that the right thing to do? Because even though they might have conceded a little bit over the last couple of years, I always would have felt that they were not too bad defensively, but they might have struggled for scores a little bit. So is that kind of the correct thing to do?
And if John Michael is going to be centre back, other teams are going to be leaving the ball anywhere but down the middle, and they'll have to, because it'll be, as Joe says, it'll be interesting if he does talk out centre back. You just can't bring the ball into contact with like John Michael, the same as Air Ogan, Rathvilly, or on Sunday. Rathvilly be a team who just don't do that to, and like, if Ross is wing back and John Michael is centre back, the scores are they after unearthing a couple of forwards, or they must have faith in a few more lads up front to get the 2-12-50. It's going to be 2-15, 2-16, 18. You're going to need to win any match in Carlow or anywhere. But definitely they were definitely going through like Shane Cavanagh's in the goal that night. Now they have Shane out of the equation for the minute. He won't be in the goal. The 3 county goalies, but he was deliberately, and he'd said that himself. I'd say, but like they were. He was looking for a puck out every puck out was short nearly within reason, and the Bulger Cup, okay, I tick the box, was matches. You could try out things, didn't go right. Was nothing. There was no skin lost off the fingers or anything, but no, definitely be intriguing to see because like Andrew Kane, I think is back with Bagnallstown there, and just mentioned there, his father passed away there last week. Andy, a great Gael we'll call it in Bagnallstown, and would have been a great follower. He's married to one of the Kennys there from Norney. Just sad note, but the likes of him, he's back. He'll be a brilliant help for Bagnallstown up front, and freshens up things from last year. He's probably only 25 or 6 with a lot of hurling done and a lot of hurling missed with what injuries he's had, and definitely will be interesting to see. But like Conor Foley, is he back? I don't know. He didn't play against us that night. He was tugged out, but not. He was one of the lads that didn't use James O'Hara. These lads, as I said, a lot of hurling in these lads, a lot done. Probably like the cliche, a lot more to do. So definitely, whoever gets the 2 points tomorrow night will have 1 foot in the semi-final probably.
Yeah, that's a game I'm looking forward to. So, and just before we move on to that as well, just when you mentioned it there, I'd like to pass on our condolences to the Kane family as well. It's a horrible thing. But anyway, like just on the game then tomorrow night, lads. Just back to the verdict. Where do we see it going and why? Let's go with this one first. I think Bagnallstown are going to win it anyway. So Stevie.
Oh God. So look, if Alfie back as well is going to be like a new, it's not. He has to bring some major to the table because we were saying last year the Bagnallstown lads, the Jack McCullers and these lads were going to be learning off of Alfie. They had to learn without him, so. You'd be guessing with Alfie coming back, if he's fully fit, he's going to bring a more of a focus to them lads and more leadership on the field, which is a big help. You can have a lad on the line telling you this, telling you that. If you have a lad in a jersey there talking to you the whole way through a game, has to make a big difference. But I'd still give Michael just a hesitant nod. Now, I've only seen Michael once. I haven't seen Bagnallstown Gales at all, but I couldn't say it'll be a puck of a ball in it. No, we'll have to stop saying Michael as well as Nave owns the club. We got the knuckle drop for that last year, commentating in 1 or 2 of the matches, and kept saying it then as well to make it worse.
Right, Joe.
Yeah, big call, isn't it? Big call because, like I said, it's just the kind of, the level of consistency of Nave Owen that you'd be worried about. I'd probably side a little bit with Bagnallstown. I think they might have a little bit more, even more threat. I think Liam Galway is back in the mix as well from that missed out a couple of years as well. I think Jamie Tark last year proved that even though obviously he tell you kind of football is his first game and he did really well with the county footballers this year, but I just think he was such a thorn in the side of the teams last year, and they played to their strengths in that sense.
Probably the most foul man in the championship last year.
Oh my God, he was incredible. He was incredible. And they had, that's not this, that's not as I said, not putting all the weight into the likes of their shoulders, but I think they might have a few more aces up their sleeve tomorrow night, and I think it'll be a very tight game. But I think they might just get over the line. I think I know. As I say, I think Michael or Nevon will be kind of once a heavy favourites, but they'll be strong favourites. But I think Bagnallstown will really target the game, and I think they're in a good position from what I'm hearing, injury wise, and their panel is in good shape, and I think they'll empty their tanks out tomorrow night. Yeah, I think it'll be a tight game, but I fancy them maybe just to get over the line.
So then McGrath Park brings its return to senior championship action, which is I never minded playing McGrath Park. I kind of liked championship games in there. There was always a nice little novelty up on the hill and stuff. I know they're doing a good bit of work in there at the moment. It's all changed, I believe. But so that's St. Mullins and Ballinkillen, and that's at the same time. So Owen Larkin is involved with Ballinkillen this year, Joe. And how's that gone down? I know Lark's a long time now, and I don't know if raw is the right description, but definitely straight and no bullshit or bollocksing.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Top man, in fairness to him, you see what you get. You can see, I suppose, what he was known for as a player. He brings to his management style. You know what I mean? He's direct. He cuts. There's no flapping around. He's constantly emphasizing hard work. The emphasis on that. Um, and again, he's playing what he sees in front of him. In fairness, which is great too. You know what I mean? Like if lads are performing and putting their hands up, they're getting the nod, and he likes that. He likes that kind of playing lads who are hurling in the moment. If you get me, who are on form at the minute. So yeah, he's definitely brought a freshness to it. I suppose he hasn't had as good a start as obviously no more than a lot of managers, but I suppose with in terms of injuries at the minute, we're down lads, and I suppose with the year it was as well, with the break with the from training as well for everyone, that he'd like to probably be further down the line. But, he'll leave no stone unturned, in fairness to him, when it comes to tomorrow night. And I think he has the lads in good form as well. They're well prepped and they're in good form. So I suppose, look, like I said, aside from our injury list and so on, we're in good form. We give it a good tilt.
Yeah. So yeah, the two Whelans and Chusha were in bother. Is that it?
That's all I'll say here.
No, you're getting paid the big bucks here to be honest and forthright and give us all our information.
Nah, God, no. So look, there's other lads coming and going too. It's no more than any club, lads with niggles and maybe I suppose.
All you're short now is a Yera. Go on, just do it.
Yeah, I know. But I suppose, look, and then we've other lads coming back into the mix, like as well, that mightn't have much hurling done. Like the lads were busy with, say, Kildavin. They were playing a lot of football, and they're coming back into the mix now. And so we've a bit of catching up to do with where we were last year in some ways. But look, that's the hand you're dealt. Like, I mean, it's not, we're not. In fairness, like we were talking at training the other night, and just ourselves, not the mentors, but like a few of us there who were maybe involved in intermediate and other lads as well. And we were saying if it was 5 or 10 years ago and we were down different lads for different reasons, you'd be scratching your head. You'd be kind of saying, "Geez, we won't be able to have a second team," and you'd be in bad shape. But we've brought up a good few lads from last year's younger lads and lads from last year's junior team as well, who are really stepping up as well. I think that's a good sign for the club, more than anything, that we're able to kind of take the losses, and while we're worried, and obviously we're disappointed not to have the boys tomorrow night, but we still think we're there with a reasonable shout. But it will be a big ask, given the key men that were down. It'll be a bigger ask than we would have liked to have,
And Stevie, the 2019 Leinster finalist, St. Mullins. How about them?
Yeah, sure. If James Dale is back and Mose is gone, let's give a one-hand attack with the other. Tricky one. Before the match last year in the semi-final, I slightly went for Ballinkillen to beat St. Mullins, and probably on the opposite end, because James Dale was missing and didn't seem to be tugged out. And yeah, it's hard. You look at the three boys are gone to two Whelans and Chucho. If Chucho's ain't coming back there, and what Jaws said, we played Ballinkillen in Loughlin Bridge there a couple of weeks ago. Pádraig Hines, a big addition, back centre forward, seems to be going very well. Jack Tracy, these lads, they're no flat tires. Probably a game that Ballinkillen, probably a bit more. If the three lads were playing, you'd probably say, right, we'd go up Ballinkillen, but St. Mullins, a lot of it. St. Mullins have no intermediate team now. They've pulled their intermediate team, so I think they were down a few for that. So there's going to be probably a bit more focus on the senior and the junior. They weren't going to win a team in the intermediate with 6 or 7 pulled off the junior team and stripping that. So it'll be interesting to see. Like John Doyle now, Conor Keogh, these lads. John Doyle come on last year. I think the semi-final could be his first game, hit 3 or 4 points. Conor Keogh, it'll be interesting to see what he is like now, say, stepping up after another year. Gary Bennett didn't feature much with the county. I think he'll be injured. I presume he's back. The three lads playing that night, we played St. Mullins, probably we called intermediate team, whoever it was in the Bulger Cup, that Chris Kavanagh, Oisin Ryan and Jason O'Neill, and in fairness to the three, they were going very well. Stood out now that night. Whether they're all starting, I don't know either. But the one thing about St. Mullins, that always the scoring that night, most of the scoring that done in that match, the two boys, Jason O'Neill and Oisin Ryan, would have done it, and Chris got maybe a point or two from centre back. So if we looking at like Jack Kavanagh now, Jack probably the last couple of games of the county there, he was coming in as an impact sub or whatever, the last 20-25 minutes. Interesting. Probably be freshened up too. There'll probably be some lads change their own positions, whether Jack be pushed back or pushed forward. Ger Cody was very good with the county there this year, I thought. Now very steady. Kind of back to the form he had there when he came onto the scene first 10 years ago. So the fact that's the match in Bagnus. So it'll be interesting to see, because neither teams will have played a senior match in there. It's not too many of them lads. James Hickey there. James said like he wasn't gone on McGrath Park. Probably results driven that was. I'll be interested to see what way it'll go. As in, lads might say goalposts are the same on any pitch, but it'll be interesting to see what way. I'd love to see that match more than the other match. As in, Dr. Cullen, we're all used to where the humps and hollows are in it. It'd just be interesting from them players' point of view to talk to them after and see what was it like playing in Bagnestown. It's probably 4 or 5 years, is it, since there was senior championship games in there?
Go again, I'd say.
I don't know now. Go again. Well, if you go again, like there's definitely won't be too many of them will have played in there.
I think the last game I remember in there that we played in there, and I stand corrected. I remember we drew with Rangers the year they either got to the senior club final or the intermediate.
2013, they won the seniors. Yeah. 2012. So that's 9 years ago.
I think it could be. I'm trying to jog my brains. I can't. You know yourself. The years ramp on from one to the other, but I think we hurled them in there that day, as far as I remember, and we drew with them in there. And I think that
it can be a tight pitch. Looks that way, but you can make it big too. It's I'd call it a true pitch, as in the Super Bowl or wherever. It is fierce big. Looks a lot wider because it's a bit more open. The walls in Bagnestown, there's one of them there a bit too close. Now if you're getting attention from a cornerback, you could end up sitting on the wall nearly. But
it's the Coliseum in Carlow Hurling, like it really is in looks nearly and everywhere. Like
as I said earlier off air, the lads come from St. Mullins and Ballinkillen, Mount Leinster Rangers coming in. You're only going to the town. It's halfway to Bagnestown. Like St. Mullins, the fair spin. It's 35 minutes probably from here. You throw another quarter of an hour. You've got an hour going to Carlow. So St. Mullins won't mind. It'll be interesting to see just how it goes. But I'd say you'll need a lorry load of slitters below the bottom fence, or the bottom goal there at the scoreboard end. I'll be sending 2 young lads out there with a good bucket.
and marker remover.
Yeah. I think going back to what Stevie said there about just he was analysing there the St. Mullins team. I think one thing that I always commend them on, and I know they might be down, they're down mouse or whatever else, but from an outsider looking in at their club, I always say their work rate. A lot of teams that sized them up maybe and said, you know what, Jesus, we've the beatings of this particular. I know they've outstanding individuals, but then you might say, Jesus, you know what, there might be a lad there. I think we'll have the match of him, or one-on-one. I think we can get the better of that lad, and you'd be kind of confident going out. But their work rate as a club, as a senior hurling club, how many years did they go into championships, and they won 3 in a row after Rangers got to the the All Ireland club. I think, isn't that right? I think they won the 3
14, 15, 16. I think, yeah.
And every year, like, people were saying, sure, look, it's Rangers again. And I suppose they're the strong team in this, and year after year, and not only with their skill level and whatever else, their game plans and so on, but their work rate as a club is just phenomenal. It's just, I won't say bred into them, but there's no die back in them. They're never beaten, and I think that'll be one thing that we'll have to match tomorrow night. If we're going to beat them, is their work rate, their intensity. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think it's just phenomenal. We talked there about particular players. and you know, and the phenomenal players, you know, and a lot of good young lads coming through. I think the couple that you mentioned there, a couple of the younger lads will have a big influence on the play.
So, Joe, I know you're under time constraint there, right? So we will let you off. So just give us your verdict on this one.
Oh well, sure, Jesus, I'm not gonna sat none of you Ballinkillen win here, Kev. I'll have to go at my own.
This lad now, he may spend more time with Larkin and just be more.
Look, I tell you, I think we're going to go in. We're going to go into the game as big underdogs, and I think we are genuinely with the players that were down. You know, key players. And, but I think Larkin has instilled a massive spirit in the boys, and I think positionally as well, we've a few more options than we had maybe other years. You know, you might see, as I say, you might see different lads moved out further out the field to kind of give us a more go forward threat, given the players that were down. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think we might just get the nod on tomorrow night.
Good stuff. Joe, thanks a million for your time. We'll let you go.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you, Joe.
There we go. So Stevie, that leaves myself and yourself, and let's have a look at the Intermediate Championship. We won't be in any great depth with it because we're under a little bit of time constraints now, of course. But yourselves, we mentioned earlier, we're playing Rangers on Saturday in Blown Boris, I believe. You gone?
No, I'm still here. Went there for a second, all right.
Yeah, so Saturday in Blown Boris.
Yeah, so look, I said they're training tonight now. I'm on late, so I won't be there. But there's lads. Look, there's niggles everywhere. There's hamstrings. The same as any other club now. We know. Who was I said the other day? Are all kind of full band of players that are there. Was it Burr Horn was talking to Tanya Gag, and I know that's amazing. I know that because anyone who's been talking to any club, there's 2 or 3 lads out, niggling the hamstring. That's the common one. Look, we're going back to Mount Leinster Rangers winning the senior last year. I canter. Gary Kelly was back from injury last year and didn't even get to feature in any game. Right, fair enough. Came to the final, and you think Rangers throw him on for 5 minutes to give him a run out? No, there's no sentiment down there. So Gary, they want to play the senior, so there'll be lads eligible to play that could go into the senior team the following week if that's be. And look, that's what it is. The lads played them in the Bulger Cup as well. They had probably an intermediate team along with Richard Kelly, Eddie Bourne, and Gary would say at the minute is a legal intermediate, we'll call him. So like last year they took Kieran Kavanagh off at mid-season, which I thought was queer, but I can see the understanding too. They took it out. He played below against us and he scored 1-8 or 1-9 or 2-10 or 2-12, and they took him off when the team was able to go back and adapt without him, rather than taking him off at a semi-final stage or something, or maybe win a semi-final and you're lost for the final. So, look, challenge games. We had Paulson there last week. There was a lot of lads missing both sides. Good workout. Found out a lot of things. Whether you can find out things and adjust them and put them right is another thing. So, it's definitely going to be an eye opener for us as a management team, as a club, how we go Saturday night. Now, saying that, you're playing again the following week with Ballinkillen the following week, so you've only a week on week to go from game to game. Don't get carried away with a win. Don't get up too badly with a loss. That'll be from the outside looking in, but when you're in the middle of it, you have to win 2 or 3 games wherever you need to get to the semi-final first, and that has to be a priority.
Right. So I think that's the only game in the Intermediate Championship, yeah, this weekend. Yeah,
I think the other game is off. Michael were to play Carlow. That's off because of the Aero game. No, I know you could say possibly they could have
nearly expected it.
Yeah, and no, you could say, CJ said, no, why didn't they put if there was going to be a team missing out this weekend, why wasn't it Carlow? But that, like, you were guessing, look, it'll be played in the middle of a week. There'll be 2 games in 4 days or 3 and 8 or whatever for some of the teams. So that game is not going ahead.
We'll do a quick fire round central then for the junior games on Sunday evening, because they're 7 o'clock starts. Your own game on Saturday, the intermediate game in Boris, is at 7 o'clock as well. But so look, you wouldn't know what to make of this junior, of course. I don't know who Nairbree do or don't have, but Nairbree versus St. Patrick's. In a word now for all these, your verdicts.
Sure, look, it's Tulla's first team, so
That's more than Nord, lad.
Yeah. Depends on Saturday night. We're going to lose. We'll lose a few Saturday night. Whoever we've left, then we'll check them out the dustpan and let them out. No, that game could be changed time-wise on Sunday.
Right,
I've heard that yesterday even. So check local press for details.
Check local press for details. Right, okay. So you're going with Tulla, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Carlow and Rangers. I don't even know if Carlow couldn't play the first team game or they're playing the junior game. But anyway, I'm going to go with Rangers for that one anyway.
Yeah, Carlow might have got a few more lads regraded for that. They looked for permission with the county board. Like, and if that's fair enough, when that's hurling, we see no problem with that.
Burn Rangers and Michael, that's an interesting one now.
Yeah, you have to be thinking Burn Rangers should be coming on a good bit. They have a couple more going up from minor to adult level this year.
Yeah. And
you'd be guessing Burn Rangers should be.
Yeah, Anthony Curry's over them too, and he'd know a little bit about Michael, of course.
Probably Steele on the line with James Hickey or Owen Larkin. You can tick that box with Anthony Curry as well.
Big time. And then a 7:30 game, Pal are at home to St. Mullins. St. Mullins is second team, so...
Yeah, second team, but probably tied that to probably have some lads that were intermediate. They're not going to maybe...
Yeah, unless there's a dispensation for that, yeah.
So I don't know how that go.
We'll go with St. Mullins for the crack, sure. I'm going with St. Mullins anyway.
I'll go with Palatine.
Right, good stuff. Right, I'll get one word. We are doing a senior football championship final preview show from 2020, of course. So strange saying that each time. But what's your own verdict? So you were obviously in there in Cullen on Sunday. You did the 2 semi-finals, didn't you?
Yeah, and we're totally different in a couple of regards. Right, going in, you were saying the first game, right, should be, Rathvilly slight favourites. Turned out that way. Eventually, the goal after half time was the 3-point lead Rathvilly had with a fair enough breeze. That was going in 20 seconds of the second half. Couple of Murphys there, new Murphys, not Brian and Brendan, were impressive. Now, Darren Murphy probably could say only maybe from place balls, but he 3 from the 45, 50, 55 metres. Kevin Murphy scored, I think, 1-2 from play. First time seeing him now, it seems decent.
He's very good,
yeah. Pal were unlucky with injuries, I suppose, going into a Conor Crowley was out, Stephen Riley weren't even on the bench. A couple more knocks during the game there. Cathal O'Neill running into Conor Hicks, and Jack Brennan was sporting a headband as well, I presume. He got a nick at some stage. Just Rathvilly done enough, and Erog, right, okay, the semi-final, like James said, the preparation wasn't ideal. Played as well as they could have, I thought, for as long as they could have possibly. The goal after half-time, I thought, was a bit harsh, as in, could have been a free to Rangers on the halfway line. I was seeing it again after John Hickey. You could see why the call went either way, and that wasn't a game changer. But Erog bench, they have a good bench coming in. Then again, it's hard to get, if you have 20, 22 players fighting for 15 positions, it's often hard to get the right 15 and the right 5 coming in that mix. So Joe Murphy's on there this morning saying that Rathvilly are favourites because they won the league 2 weeks ago. Only Paddy Powers are saying that, but that don't matter. Starting at 0-0. And the thing about it, I looked up there the other day, Erog and Rathvilly haven't played that much in the final in the last, they played, 3 years ago?
2017, I think it was,
Yeah, not replay, but Cormac Muns had to kick a
that's right,
point to level, and Jordan Morrissey got a goal, I think, to start the second day. He was only a minor, was he still? I'm not sure, maybe out. And,
he was, yeah.
But like, I thought that, I had to look back at it, like they were playing in the 90s there, and they were playing 6 or 7 finals against one another, but I know Erog will win them all. Look, it'd be interesting to see what the likes of these Darren Murphys, Kevin Murphys bring to a county final, and new lads into the equation. Erog look to know everything about county final. They're going for 4 in a row, and that's like a serious achievement. But you just see the small thing, that Cormac Mullins point, they were out the gate, Rathvilly possibly other than that, and there've been all 4 in a row. You were starting from scratch again the following year. I have to give Erog, I suppose, the nod, as in the Leinster final champ or 2 years ago. Kind of forget that. But any team as Brendan Murphy, Ed Finnegan, Alan Kelly was quite last week. they're not going to go down. And you're talking about work rate with Sam Mullins, Rathvilly do that in spades, and it said with Homer kind of similar clubs as in. They always filter lads through. They might be getting on grey underage or taking beatings and that, but they've a small area and they don't mind taking that. They're thinking of the bigger picture. You up the adult level, unearth a lad every year or two, and Darren Murphy's been around a while now, possibly not playing that much, but I would have seen him under 16 level. But Kevin Murphy, big a fair threat. Don't think about it. You'd think Erogue's experience should be enough to do it, but I wouldn't rule out Anthony. I would say Rathvilly I'd be thinking to keep it the lower score in the game better. I think Rathvilly have a better chance eking out a 1 or 2 point win. But if it's a score fest, you'd have to fancy Rogue with what forwards they have. Now, as I said, to get the mix right, to get the right 15 and right 5 coming in, that has to work, and working that in county final day is going to be what could be the clincher.
Could be indeed. Well, we want to thank our sponsor, Mr. Paul Kelly. The Back and Line Clinic is looking after us here today and has looked after me a fair bit throughout my lifetime as well. And we'll have a few more appearances with him shortly, I'd say, no doubt. But Stevie, thanks for coming on. Thanks to Joe Nolan and James Hickey as well for joining us. And great to have a bit of action to talk about. Best luck the weekend, Stevie, and Breed. And we'll chat to you again soon, all right?
Right, thanks, Kevin.